What's going on YouTube? We're up to workout number 3 of my current split, Become a Strong Motherfucker. As you guys know, I am thinking about doing a powerlifting competition, so I'm in the process of taking you guys through what my weekly split looks like. Today is the deadlift and lower body accessory day. Let's hit it. So program today calls for a top set, sumo deadlift to start, a top set of 207 for 3 to 5. Now hopefully I'm going to hit the upper end of that weight range, and then I'm bringing it back for 4 more working sets. We're looking at 4 sets of 8 at 177.5. So all these numbers are worked off or calculated off my current 1RM. It is a bit of a conservative 1RM at the moment simply because I haven't tested in so long. What I'm going to do now is slowly work my way up to that top set before backing off again. So warming up is all about adequately preparing for that working set or the working sets that you've got planned. So what we want to make sure we're doing is adequately preparing ourselves without actually fatiguing ourselves for those main lifts. So basically what I'm doing to start is basically pyramiding up in terms of the weight and the sets and the reps that I'm doing. We'll start off with 1 plate aside for sort of 6 to 10, making sure I'm sort of working my way into it. Now I'm adding a plate, and again I'm going to continue adding a plate until I get up to that working weight. Looking at bringing it back down to sort of like single reps, 2 reps at a time, just to make sure I'm preparing my body for that working weight without actually taxing myself too much. So to start, I hit 1 plate aside for 6 reps. Then I add another plate each side, another 6 reps. From there, I've started to back it off a little bit. 3 plates aside for 3 reps. I'm now up to 4 plates aside. I'll look for 1 to 2, depending on how I'm feeling. The last thing you want to do is gas yourself before your working sets. You want to use these weight progressions as a way of adapting to the weight that you're about to lift. So final warm-up set, just underneath my working weight. So I'm hitting 207.5 for 3 to 5. Final working set is at 200. Just going to hit for 1. It's all about that physiological adaptation before taking on that working set. Best thing you can possibly do in the lead up to a working set is treat every single rep as if you're hitting a 1 rep max. That way, not only are you practicing getting into really good habits, practicing really good form, getting as tight as possible, but when it does come time to actually test a 1 rep max, the only variable that's changing is the amount of weight you're lifting. You aren't going to have to process, keeping my back straight and making sure that I'm driving my knees out. All you're thinking about doing is doing exactly what you've practiced up until that point, with a little bit of extra weight. So one of the beautiful things about submaximal programming, which DUP is, right? Basically we're looking at what you can do for a max and then making sure that we're actively working at numbers below that. Simply because A, we want to make sure that we have as much room to move and as much room to progress as possible, but B, working on an RPE based scale, as in if you're looking at hitting an 8 or 9 out of 10 difficulty rating on any given day in the gym, the thing you have to understand is that on some days you might feel fantastic and an 8 or a 9 out of 10 might be a lot heavier than on some other days where maybe you're feeling stressed, you're feeling tired, you didn't sleep all that well, and it's a much harder grind. So for me, whilst that didn't feel overly easy, because I've got designated numbers to actually strive for, I'm aware of my volume target for the day, and at the in the very worst case scenario, I can always bring that weight back down and look at adding in additional sets or reps to make sure that I'm still getting through a specified amount of volume. Remember, volume is sets times reps times weight lifted. That equation there makes your training far easier to manipulate, particularly when it comes to managing recovery, managing workloads, and managing progression. So my top set done, as I said, 3 to 5 at 207.5. Good news is I managed to hit that 5, which means my progression for the next week is also going to increase at a slightly higher rate than if, say, I only hit 3 reps. Now, bringing the weight back down, we've got 4 sets of 8 at 177.5. struggling a bit today. Whenever I get tired, the first thing that always goes is my form. But I really tried to do that set was slow things down and really focus on not yanking the bar off the ground. So making sure my entire body was active and essentially holding the weight before I actually pulled it off the ground. When I get tired, I tend to try and go from a relaxed position to an active one and try and pull the ground or yank the bar off the ground as quickly as possible, which just makes it way harder. So if you're ever feeling a little bit tired or if you can't quite get through the set, the best thing to do, hands down, is to slow it down, focus on your breathing, and give yourself every chance of actually completing each rep in an optimal fashion. Okay, so I'm gonna borrow a little phrase from my good friend Steve Cook here. He's got a great saying, last set, best set. Okay, so this is my last set of 8. I'm gonna try and make sure that this set is my best set. So all those problems I had that last one that I was mentioning, about getting a little bit tired and trying to yank the bar off the ground, I really think about nailing that form, getting as tight as possible, and easing that bar quickly, but easing that bar off the ground and giving myself every chance of getting through each lift as best as possible. Okay, deadlift's done. First accessory movement today is a front foot elevated split squat. Gonna elevate the front foot around 20 centimeters off the ground. We're looking at taking our front knee beyond the front toe. So we're trying to target glutes and quads predominantly. 4 sets of 10. For accessory work, you want to keep your rest as required. Keep in mind, volume is the key determining factor to making gains. So don't limit yourself by putting preconceived restrictions on how much you should be resting for, if ultimately that means at the end of the day, you're going to get through less volume. Always try and keep the movement for your accessory work as slow and as controlled as possible. We want to make sure the volume is increasing over time, but if we're actively tracking our main lifts in particular and ensuring that they're going up, so long as our accessory work is remaining stagnant, volume is still going up over time. There is no need to consistently lift more and more and more on absolutely everything at the same time. So it's not going to happen. Focus on making small improvements when you can, but for the most part, if you can focus on making sure that you aren't regressing in anything, you'll be set. Okay, so next accessory movement, we've got a Zercher back extension. So basically we're using the 45-degree machine to hit a back extension. We're actually going to perform it with a rounded back. Okay, we want to try and activate our glutes and get them to do as much of the work as possible, holding the bar as if we're doing a Zercher squat. So basically in between our elbows, what that is going to help to do is just activate our lower back and help engage our spine throughout the movement. So a lot of people think about keeping a neutral spine for a movement like the back extension, when in actual fact, if you can round your spine ever so slightly and focus on coming up vertebrae by vertebrae, you can actually serve to engage your glutes as much as possible and disengage your lower back. A lot of people try and keep that neutral spine position where the chest is proud, and as a consequence their lower back is engaged throughout the movement. It just means they're only going to be using their lower back, and it's definitely something I've always struggled with until I learned how to do it this way. Rounding your spine, coming up vertebrae by vertebrae, you won't be able to get up off the toilet seat properly for a week. So think about keeping the toes pointed out. Again, driving those hips through as you aim to bring out the vertebrae sort of one by one, really squeezing the glutes at the top. 3 or 4 reps in, it's going to be a nasty burn. Getting into some isolation movements now. We're going to superset 2 exercises. We've got a basic leg extension with a hamstring curl. We're going to go for 12 to 15 reps on each, 4 sets. We're not going to go any rest between the 2 sets. I guess again, rest as required between the actual supersets, but for the 2 exercises, one after the other. So when I first started training legs, I used to think the best thing I could do was just get the biggest pump possible. And I used to really limit my rest periods. So going back on what I was saying earlier in the session, volume is key. What I would find is doing, say 6 sets of 20 leg extensions, which is what I used to do, might have given me an insane pump and made sure that I couldn't walk properly the next day. But at the end of the day, more often than not, 4th, 5th, 6th set in that routine, I'd have to lower the weight because I was just so gassed and my legs were so fried that I physically couldn't lift the weight. Whereas if I extended those rest periods a little bit, chances are I could probably keep the weight the same throughout, and as a consequence, get through much more volume. Volume is key. Don't let your rest periods dictate or influence total volume output. Last accessory work of the day, we've got 4 sets, again 12 to 15 reps on a calf raise. Personally, I find pretty much every calf raise to be more or less the same thing. So for me, I find I get the most activation out of using the Smith machine or anything standing that you can apply additional weight to. So if you've got a standing calf press, even worst case scenario, jump on the leg press to load up your calves, go with that. So today I'm hitting the Smith machine, setting myself up on a step. Gonna focus on full range of motion, really stretching out at the bottom, big squeeze, big contraction at the top of the rep. 4 sets of 12 to 15. I find the calves are a fairly resilient muscle, hence why I like to incorporate, I guess, that negating of momentum at the bottom of the rep, simply pausing and stretching things out. It's going to take away any momentum or explosive power out of the movement, so you're really having to force the muscle to work as much as possible. Because we spend all our day, our entire day standing and walking around and actually using our calves, you got to make them work hard. So I like to rest, really stretch them out at the bottom, and then really make them work hard on the way up, big stretch at the top. Session 3, deadlift and lower body accessory work done. I am knackered. Remember guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the comments section below. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about strength training and about daily undulating periodization and the methods that I use, again, the links are all in the description underneath the video. Stay tuned for session 4 coming next week. Cheers guys.